To pay tribute to the legacy of Chick Corea, I'm going to analyze one of his solos. Now, in recent years, Chick has made several demonstration videos that offer great insight into his musical approaches. In this video, I take one of those short performances and analyze a fascinating solo he takes toward the end. If you want to follow along with my video, it's really important that you watch Chick's video first, which I've included as a link in the comments below. Now, the section that I'm interested in happens between 1 minute and 12 seconds and 1 minute and 45 seconds. It's just a short snapshot in time, but the solo illustrates a few important tools in Chick's vast toolbox of improvisation. I'll be going over pattern sequences, rhythmic displacement, 5-note groupings, and hand-over-hand piano technique. Let's take a look. Okay, I'll start by transcribing the solo, and then I'll play it at a slower tempo. So we're going to break this solo into two sections, each 16 measures long. Here's the first section. And as you can see, the chords are G7 and A-flat major 7, each one lasting about 4 measures. Now, if you listen to Stanley Clarke playing the bass line, he actually moves freely to different notes within the scale that's implied by each of those chords. And those notes that he plays, I put in parentheses just to show you that he moves around a bit within those areas. Now here we're going to write the two chords and the notes that are in those chords, the G7 and A-flat major 7. If you were to put all those notes together, you would actually get a pretty viable scale for a solo. It would be called the G Spanish Phrygian scale. But that's not actually what Chick does for most of this piece. Instead, he partitions the scale into two sections, one for the G7 and one for the A-flat major 7. Of course, when Chick plays these chords, he often plays fourth voicings that imply these chords in various ways, which would be a good topic for another video. So we can see in parentheses here a fourth chord that he might play for the G7 chord. For the scale here, he uses the Mixolydian mode, which is the same as a G major scale, but with a lowered seventh. For the A-flat major 7 chord, he uses a Lydian mode, same thing as a major scale, but with a raised fourth. Now, the beginning of this solo is pretty straightforward. We could see the outline of a G triad right at the very beginning for the G7 chord. And when the A-flat major 7 chord comes in measure 5, we can see that the A-flat Lydian mode is anticipated actually by one beat. Going into the G7 chord in measure 9, again, he anticipates the phrase with a series of ascending and chromatic fourth intervals, followed by a descending series of fourth intervals, and then a chromatic scale. It's really nice the way he anticipates the phrasing and the change of harmony by starting his phrases a little bit before the measure. That really causes the music to push forward very nicely. By measure 10, the notes are clearly in the mode of G Mixolydian. As we approach the A-flat major 7 in measure 13, he's reduced the melodic material down to 3 notes, just F, G, and C. Of course, these 3 notes are notes that are in common with both the G Mixolydian mode and the A-flat Lydian mode. And he plays around with a rhythm there for a few measures before returning to the G7 chord. Now, it's the second set of 16 measures that are extremely interesting in this solo. And before we take a look at those, let's talk about a few concepts. The sequence, rhythmic displacement, 5-note groupings, and hand-over-hand piano technique. A sequence is a melodic or harmonic pattern that repeats on successively higher or lower pitch levels. Here we can create a sequence by making a pattern, and this pattern, it just has 4 simple notes, C, D, E, and F. And what we do is we just repeat that pattern, starting on successively higher pitch levels. So first we start on C, and then we write the pattern starting on D, and then we write it starting on E, and then we start it writing on F, etc. We keep going up and up like that, and it creates a rather pleasing sound. Of course, patterns can also go down. Here's another 4-note pattern. It's C down to B and then skip down to G and up to A. A little bit more interesting of a pattern. And we can write that same pattern at a successively lower pitch level, starting on B. That would be B, A, F, and G. And then continue a lower pitch level again, starting on A, and a lower pitch level again, starting on G. And it's a rather pleasing sound, a bit more complicated than the first. What makes the patterns interesting in a sequence like this is if they don't exactly fit into groupings, beat groupings, or measure groupings. So if, for example, if we're going to write eighth notes, consider writing a 3-note pattern. This pattern, very simple, C, D, E. And then we'll go up to D, E, F, and then E, F, G. But when we group it, we'll group it as eighth notes. And notice that we'll put this beam over 4 of them. So there seems to be a bit of a conflict between the rhythmic grouping and the shape. This is what we call rhythmic displacement, because every time the pattern starts again on a higher pitch level, it starts on a different part of the measure. And that's what makes it interesting to listen to. What could make this even more interesting is taking something a little bit more complex. For example, a 5-note pattern. Here we've got one, C, D, A, G, F. Notice it goes up, then it skips up, and it comes down 3 steps. And then we'll start that same pattern on D. So it's D, E, skip up to B, A, G. But now, again, we're going to group those 5-note patterns as eighth notes in beamings of 4 notes. So you're going to get a very sparkly sound where the accentuation keeps shifting to different parts of the measure, different beats and different parts of the beat. This is the essence of a lot of rhythmic displacement that you're going to find in more modern jazz performers like Chick Corea. In fact, you're going to find that different kinds of rhythms based on groupings of 2s and 3s. In other words, here we have a 5-note pattern, but it's really 2 notes going up and then 3 notes coming down. 2 plus 3, 2 plus 3, 2 plus 3. If you expanded on that, you might be able to come up with patterns that are 2 plus 2 plus 3, or 3 plus 2 plus 2, or, different groupings of 2s and 3s. And the possibilities are endless. Now, to listen to it, it's a bit difficult of a pattern to play with one hand, but let's give it a try. Now, if we notate this pattern a little bit differently, we might see that it could be much easier to play if we think of it more like a keyboard situated pattern. We'll take the 2 plus 3s that we talked about a minute ago, and we'll put the 2s in the left hand and the 3s in the right hand. In other words, and this pattern has 2 notes going up, and then 3 notes going down, and then 2 notes going up, 3 notes going down. So you can see we've got 2 in the left hand, 3 in the right hand, 2 in the left hand, 3 in the right hand, 2 in the left hand, 3 in the right hand, all the way up until that pattern, and we exhaust it. But we're going to group it as 4 eighth notes, again, to keep a little bit of rhythmic dissonance. This is what we call rhythmic displacement. But this should be a lot easier to play with a little bit of practice. Okay, let's go back to the second part of Chick's solo and give it a listen. Look at all those varied patterns. It seems like every group is completely different, like snowflakes. But with a little sleight of hand, we can figure this out. First, let's remove the beams, and then let's remove the stems and the bar lines. Finally, let's re-beam it in groups of 2s and 3s. In other words, composite groups of 5s. The stems down will be for the left hand, and the stems up will be for the right hand. Now it's easy to see the 5-note patterns. The left hand has consistent ascending second intervals, and the right hand has varying groupings of descending intervals, starting with a 4th going down and then followed by a 2nd. If we reintroduce the bar lines, you'll be able to see how these patterns result in a lively rhythmic displacement in the 4/4 time signature. As the solo continues, Chick makes sure to conform the notes to either the G mixolydian for the G7 chord or the A-flat Lydian for the A-flat major 7 chord. Notice the introduction of accidentals for the A-flat Lydian starting in measure 21. And notice the return of the white notes of the G mixolydian mode starting in measure 25. Now, at measure 21, he widens the intervals of the right hand while keeping the same basic shape. And then, in measure 25, the right hand uses simple triadic shapes, but it becomes extra lively as he alternates between ascending and descending patterns of this triad. Listen again to this section and see if you can catch all these features. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little peek into Chick Corea's fertile musical mind. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel and add a comment. And hope to see you in the next video.